What if the worst part of loneliness isn't being alone at all? What if it's the story your mind starts telling you the moment silence enters the room? You know the moment. It's 8 p.m. on a Saturday. The world outside is alive with sound, laughter spilling from a restaurant, a couple walking hand in hand past your window. You're sitting with a plate of food you made for one. You open your phone, and there it is. A friends group photo, a wedding, a reunion you weren't part of. You close the app. The room feels heavier than it did 5 minutes ago. Nothing has changed except your awareness of it. Here's what almost nobody tells you about that feeling. The silence didn't do this to you. Solitude is just an empty container. What fills it, what gives it weight, gives it teeth, is the meaning you pour into it. Think about it. There are nights when being alone feels like relief. Finally, no one needs anything from me. Finally, I can just exist. And there are other nights identical in every physical detail when the same four walls suddenly whisper, "Nobody wants you here." Same apartment, same silence, same hour on the clock, but one night you feel free and the other you feel forgotten. The room didn't change, the story did, and once that darker story starts, it rarely stays quiet. It multiplies. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe everyone else has somewhere to belong, and I just don't. Maybe people get close to me and eventually decide I'm not worth staying for. These thoughts rarely announce themselves directly. They slide in sideways, disguised as simple observations when really they're verdicts, old, harsh, and unexamined. Because here's the deeper truth psychologists keep circling back to. Loneliness is rarely the birthplace of self-doubt. It's the place where self-doubt that already existed finally gets loud enough to hear. Think back far enough, and many people find a child who learned quietly and without words that their feelings were inconvenient. A child who was told to calm down before anyone asked what was wrong. A child who got used to being looked at but not truly seen. That child grows up fluent in a kind of self-judgment so familiar it stops feeling like judgment at all. It just feels like the truth. So when adult silence arrives, it doesn't create that old wound. It just walks straight into the room where the wound was always waiting. This is why two people can sit in the exact same kind of solitude and live two entirely different emotional realities. One person, surrounded by friends at a party, can feel utterly invisible in the middle of the noise. Another, sitting completely alone in a quiet apartment, can feel something close to peace. The difference was never how many people were in the room. The difference was the relationship each of them had with themselves. Which brings us to something worth sitting with. Maybe the opposite of loneliness isn't company. Maybe it's self-acceptance. Because company without acceptance just gives you a more crowded place to feel unseen, and acceptance without company can still feel like home. So here's a small but radical shift. Instead of asking, "Why am I always alone?" a question that quietly assumes something is broken in you, try asking, "What story am I telling myself right now about being alone?" That question creates distance. It turns a verdict into something you can actually examine, maybe even gently challenge. Being alone is not proof that you're unlovable. It's not evidence you've failed at something everyone else figured out. Most of the time, it's just silence. And silence only becomes an enemy when we hand it a script written by our oldest fears. So maybe the goal was never to fear loneliness less. Maybe it's simply to stop treating yourself like a stranger, or worse, an enemy, the moment it shows up. So tonight, if the silence finds you, pause before you believe the first thing it says. When you're alone, what is the first story your mind tells you?